We finally made it. We're on the first day of Advent. So I guess I should say Happy New Year, since today is actually the first day of the church's calendar. It's the start of the church year, the end of the calendar year. We're midway through the school year. It's probably best not to think about it too much, because if there's one thing that humans like to do, it's to complicate things, especially things like calendars. So just do what I do and wake up in the morning and not have any idea of what day it is. Now, if you're paying attention to today's gospel lesson, which I know that you are 100% just wrapped with attention, you may be asking yourself, what does this have to do with Christmas, much less Advent? And really, that's a good question. As we start the new church year, we do what a whole lot of people do. We read the end of the story first. Now, I know that there are some of you out there. Don't try to hide it if you're one of those people. There's nothing wrong with it. But when you pick up a book, you'll read the first few pages, kind of thumb through it a little bit, and then immediately turn to the end of the story. And I don't blame you one bit. You want to know how the story is going to end. Because you want to make sure that you got to be prepared. Because if something were to happen to your favorite character, or even worse, the dog, you want to be prepared. You want to be ready for it. You need to brace yourself for the instance when you get so emotional, you slam the book shut, and throw it down on the couch. And it can make it a whole lot easier to enjoy the story when you know how it's going to end. Now, you still get all the suspense, all the intrigue, the great plot, all that. But you also get the comforting assurance of knowing that it's all going to be okay. Now, we don't get the beginning of Jesus' story. Yes, we get the nativity, birth in the stable, angels singing in heaven, everything you can expect from a kid's Christmas pageant. But that's not the beginning of Jesus, because Jesus has no beginning. He's always been. Through him, all things were made. He's existed since before the world was created. And it is easy to think of that night in Bethlehem as the beginning of Jesus' life. He was around for eternity before that moment. But we do get to flip a few pages ahead, and we get to see how it ends. In those days, after that suffering, the sun will be darkened, the moon will not give its light, the stars will be falling from heaven, and the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Then they will see the Son of Man coming in clouds with great power and glory. During Advent, we look forward to two things: Christ's arrival on earth through his birth, the incarnation, Christmas. We also look forward to his future arrival on that great and glorious day, someday in the future. The word Advent itself comes from the Greek word adventus, which means coming or arrival. One of those arrivals has already happened through the incarnation. The other one will happen one day. And although we don't know when, but we do know that it will happen. Because in the darkness, God appears. The Israelites, they were on their way out of Egypt. They fled from slavery. They're starting that long trek to Canaan. Spirits are high. People are rejoicing. That crushing yoke of enslavement has been thrown off of their shoulders. And that's when they reach the sunny shores of the Red Sea. As they stop to make camp for the night, it begins. It begins as a little rumble. You can hardly hear it over the sound of the water lapping against the shore. Then that rumble grows into a roar. The ground begins to shake. The stragglers who have been at the back of the line hadn't been in a hurry. They were just making their way. They've been sitting at the fringes of the edge of camp. But then, one by one, they start to sprint into the middle. They're running through the camp, shouting, "Pharaoh! Pharaoh is here!" The entire Egyptian army is quickly closing in on the Israelites' heels. They look ahead of them, nothing but water. Looking behind, all they see is a rapidly approaching wall of dust from chariots, horses, and battalions, marching to either take the people of God back to slavery or to leave their bodies there on the sand. Nothing but water, nothing but doom. So they look to heaven, and all they see are the oranges and the pinks of the rapidly setting sun. The darkness envelops them. And this is not the darkness that we're accustomed to. We've got our street lights, our cars have headlights, everybody's got a flashlight on their phone, not even a candlelight. This is the oppressive darkness that comes from being in the middle of nowhere, with danger lurking right behind you. A chorus of weeping, sad, angry, frightened weeping, rings out through the night. And that's when it happens. Out of the darkness, God appears. A cloud of flames sweeps down from heaven and forms a wall between the Israelites and the Egyptians. God himself is there, and any Egyptian who tries to cross that line will not see sunrise. Because out of the darkness, God appears. Mary and Martha, they sit at the tomb, and all they can do is weep. Their brother, their caretaker, their best friend Lazarus, he lies just on the other side of that rock. His lifeless body is wrapped in the best linen they can afford, and it's right there. They know that there's nothing they can do about it. There's so many emotions going through their heads. They're scared, disappointed, distraught, frightened, confused. They'd sent word several days ago, but no help had arrived. And now it's too late. Their world is upside down. All they can do is sit and hold each other in the dark shadow of the tomb. And so they sit. They sit and they weep. They cry out to God. And out of the darkness, out of that dark shadow of the tomb, Jesus appears. He hugs them tight. And through his tears, he cries out, "Lazarus, come forth." The world is a sometimes wonderful and sometimes terrible place. All throughout Advent, you're going to hear me talk about comfort and joy. You may have heard that phrase in a song once. And I will be the first to admit it, but most of us live pretty comfortable lives. We've got a roof over our heads, food whenever we want it, access to almost anything we could ever want, all at the push of a button. We have friends, family, neighbors. We're not always comfortable. The holiday season can bring out some intense emotions. The excitement of watching a child open Christmas presents, the contentment of a wonderful meal shared with good friends. It can also bring the dread of having to face a family member who's hurt you. The hurt of feeling like your Christmas just isn't as good as someone else's. The loneliness of missing those who are gone from our lives. If you haven't noticed, the world can be a dark place. Because of sin, humanity has taken what God has called good and we perverted it for our own desires. War, destruction, poverty, hunger, death. We've taken the garden and piece by piece, we've thrown it on the fire so the smoke darkens the sky. For the first time in modern history, there will be no Christmas decorations on the streets of Bethlehem. For centuries, Christians have flocked to the birthplace of Jesus to celebrate Christ coming into the world. But this year there will be no pilgrims, no trees, no feast, no parties. There will only be prayer. Manger Square. Its name is Manger Square. It's the epitome of Christmas spirit. And it will be dark and silent. Because Bethlehem sits on the edge of what is known as the West Bank. Christian leaders there, they could not in good conscience string up lights and tinsel as they have done for centuries. They could not in conscience put up decorations or throw parties or do anything but pray while their cousins in Gaza grasped for air in the piles of rubble. We've taken this world that God has given us, and we've decided that we prefer the darkness. We blotted out the sun with our greed, our selfishness, our sin. In those days, after that suffering, the sun will be darkened, the moon will not give its light, the stars will be falling from heaven, the powers in heaven will be shaken. Complete and utter darkness. No sun, no moon, no stars. Pain and suffering without even a light to see it by. But that's when it happens. The powers of heaven are shaken. The dark fabric of the sky begins to tremble. As the heavens and the earth begin to quake, in the darkness, Jesus appears. As he treads across the sky, that darkness that we have created is swallowed up in his great and glorious light. Death, sickness, greed, hunger, poverty, jealousy, loneliness, whatever it is you're dealing with, it's trampled under the feet of Jesus. There's no shadow for it to hide under. Whatever your darkness is, in that darkness, Jesus appears. We take comfort. Take comfort in knowing that whatever we're dealing with, it's only temporary. It might be tough, but we know the future. We know how it's going to end. Now, you might be pretty comfortable right now. Life is good. And I thank God for that. I pray that that continues for you. That's not the case for everyone. So if life is good, here's your chance. Be that light. Take the light of God and share it with those in the dark. Wherever you are today, take comfort. Take comfort in the fact that God breaks through the darkness. Take comfort in the fact that the same God who took his people through the Red Sea is the same God who raised Lazarus from the dead. It's the same God who will one day come again in great power and glory. Take comfort in the knowledge that as sure as God made green apples, he will one day call us back to him. Take comfort because we know how the story ends. Amen.